All right, guys. So after a little bit of extra sanding on the knot from the last time I picked up here, I've now gotten it to sit within the slot here. I'll just see if I can get a better zoom for you here. I have now seated the nut within the nut slot here. And one thing to consider when you're doing this, make it a little bit easier on yourself and take one edge of the nut and just butt it up right against the edge here, leaving you the overhang on, in this case, the left-hand side. For me, I can then go in with a pencil or something sharp and just scribe a line across both sides and on the bottom as well. And that will give me the line to sand to in order to get my nut down to the final dimension here. And it's just easier than taking the nut and placing it in the middle and then have overhang on both sides, and you have to be extra meticulous in order to get the measurement and the things right in order to sand from both sides. And this just provides you with a perfectly squared up side over here, and yeah, with overhang on one side to cut here. So we're good, and the nut is sitting perfectly flat on the bottom. I had to go in and do a little bit of extra chiseling out just with one of my smaller chisels here, because there were a little bit of an inconsistency at one end, so I had to go in and correct that, but it was nothing major really. Now that the nut is fitted, the next part would be for me to go in and mark its final dimensions and then sand it down, and I'm going to do that, and there'll be a section about that. Once that is done, I thought that I would take out my safe slot nut guard here from Stuart McDonald, and I know that it is mostly used on guitars and acoustics, but I think that using one of the thicker shims which is applied with this, I should be able to get away with making a bass nut as well. And I have just carefully written down some measurements here so that I can check before I start doing anything. And if the shim is not wide or thick enough for me to do this with a bass, then I'm just going to do it the old school way. But using the safe slot nut guard is just going to keep things in place, and I don't have to fiddle around with things because there's a cradle that I can tighten up so everything sits. But I've just been thinking about what I want this bass to be set up like, and I'm thinking with a fretboard radius of around 14, I would like to set the relief at 10 thousandths. I like to have the action somewhere around 2.4 millimeters on the low E side and around 2 millimeters on the G side. With the nut action in this case, I'd rather want to start higher than actually lower, because I can put material back on, right? So I've been thinking about a nut action starting with 35 thousand of an inch on the E side and 20 thousandths on the G side. And then I can always determine, once I get things dialed in with the relief and the action, whether I need to take down the nut a little further. String spacing and outer E spacing, I have to figure out and use my digital caliper to do that. But I think that I got things down. So with this and the nut, the safe slot nut guard here, I can measure out the total height of the nut in this case, and do that by adding the height of the fret, the desired first fret action, and half the diameter of the strings that I'm going to use. So for the E side with the low E, I have 40,000, 35,000 and 47,000, and that adds up to 122 thousandths of an inch here. On the G side, I have 40,000, 20,000 and 20,000. So that gives me a total of 80,000 for the G side. So that would be the overall top of the nut here. That is the line that I'm going to sand down to and kind of get that sloping going from a little higher on the low E side to a little lower on the G side. because that's the general arc and slope we want of that nut. And the safe slot nut guard is just going to help me strike a line to do that. And I'll see how that turns out. And then I can sand down to that line. And from there, it's all about establishing the E-string or the string spacing again here. So I can file those in and check whether I like the layout of the spacing. And from there, just finalizing the overall shape and the depth. So that is what I'm going to do next here. So there'll be a little section about that as well. So I just wanted to give you the heads up here. It's just always a good idea to write down and lay out the things that you're trying to aim for, because you can always start a little higher, but if you start too low, you have to start all over again. So this is what I'm going to do, and we'll see how that goes along. So stay tuned, guys, and we'll get right back in here.